Angel fans, the big question is Mike Trout in decline? Well, Trout gave an answer. He says, no. Actually, he said it 3 different times, and he's ready to prove that he's not in decline this year. So what's Mike doing to be like the old Mike Trout? We're going to tell you. It's time to get locked on with Mike and John, and this is Locked On Angels.
You are Locked On Angels, your daily Los Angeles Angels podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
John and I thank you for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. You can find us anywhere you get your podcast, including Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and SiriusXM by searching Locked On Angels. And if you'd like to get back to the Super Halo Bros for all the Super Halo content, here's some things that you can do. Leave us a rate and a review on Apple Podcasts. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that thumbs up button. And if you're not subscribed already, please subscribe and become a Locked On everydayer. And whether you're watching or listening, come over to YouTube, leave a comment. It's one of the best ways to get in touch with us and be a part of the conversation. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. You can make every moment more. And new customers, join today and you'll get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet of $5 or more wins. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn to get started.
Thank you for being here for this episode of Locked On Angels, where it's your team every single day. You've got the Frisch Brothers here with you, a.k.a. the Super Halo Bros. My name is John, and that's my brother Mike.
And my name is Mike, and that's my brother John.
Mike, we're gearing up for Season 3 as the hosts of Locked On Angels, and we're very excited to be here talking Angels baseball Monday through Friday, every single weekday. On today's show, is Mike Trout in decline? He says no, and how do we know that is actually accurate? Well, we'll talk about it a little bit later on, but the Halos are stealing more bases this spring than they have the last few seasons. So what's the reason? We're going to talk about that as well. But first, let's recap yesterday's game against the World Series champions, the Texas Rangers, Mike.
John, Tyler Anderson had his second start yesterday, and so it went really well, actually. First inning, Anderson got 2 quick outs with only 9 pitches. And then he showed glimpses of the old Anderson. He went 3-0 to Lowe, and then Lowe hit a double. It was a fastball right down the middle because he had to throw it over the plate. Lowe smashed it for a double. But then he got a line out with the next batter. And then in the second inning, had a strikeout with a changeup to the first batter, a strikeout on a 3-2 pitch to the next batter. It was a changeup again, and then a fly out to the final batter. And then in the third inning, John, the first batter popped out to right. The next batter struck out. The next batter, well, it was a home run.
Yeah.
Because he went down 3-0 again.
Yeah.
He
it was Marcus
had 3
Semien.
balls, no strikes. Marcus Semien is great. And so he hits a home run. It was the second 3-0 hit for the Rangers. Lowe obviously was the first. Then the last batter struck out on the changeup again, Johnny. 6 strikeouts through 3 innings for Tyler Anderson. Pretty efficient. Pretty much like what we would hope that he would be, except for those 2 at-bats where he got behind. What'd you notice about Tyler Anderson's start yesterday, Johnny?
First thing I noticed was first inning, 14 pitches. Second inning, 15 pitches. Third inning, 14 pitches. Efficient pitching. And I know he got in some trouble with the 3-0 counts. He gave up that solo shot to Marcus Semien because you can't get in a 3-0 count to Marcus Semien and not expect something bad to happen to you.
He's going to hurt you.
Mike, where'd all the Anderson poo-pooers from last week go? I didn't see any tweets from yesterday that said, boy, you know what, Mike and John, you guys were right. He was working on stuff in that first spring game. You guys, you were right. He was working up and down the strike zone. He was trying to place that fastball so that he could throw the changeup, because that's exactly what he did yesterday, Mike. He was placing the fastball up, placing the fastball down, getting guys to swinging over it, throwing that changeup when the time called for it. Got some guys out on the cutter. He was working that cutter in as well. So the arm motion was much more deceptive on the changeup. He had great balance. I know he does that funky little leg thing, but he seemed to be a lot more in control of himself yesterday. The body lean the way it was supposed to, and the arm followed to the plate, which is what you want to see. And when Anderson avoids those 3-0 counts, he's in control. And when the hitters get ahead of him, they're in control. I think it's very simple to see that if Anderson can get ahead of guys, then he's going to have a lot of success. Now, I will say that it was great to see 6 Ks over those 3 innings.
Yeah.
And we will be interested to see how he handles another turn through the order. I think that's the key ingredient that's missing at this point. And not just for Anderson, but spring training in general. These guys are extending to about 3 innings, maybe even 4 innings.
Yeah.
And we're going to want to see how they roll through the lineup the second time.
John, did you see in between the first and the second inning, there was a shot of Anderson, O'Hoppe, and Enright discussing a few things. I loved that, first of all, just because Enright is involved, but I love that O'Hoppe is there as well. Now, Gooby said on the broadcast that they were most likely talking about pitch sequencing, arm angle, and the throwing of the first pitch strike over the plate and not using your best pitch to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And then he also said that they probably discussed that this would be, a regular rhythm for the Angels moving forward. Again, I love that O'Hoppe was involved in that, and I really have a lot of confidence in Barry Enright. And then they mentioned the positive impact that a 5-man rotation is already having on the Halos. They said that Detmers just told them yesterday, wow, I'm pitching again. I'm in just a couple of days, right? And so he's quite excited about that because he said he gets a shot to improve faster and get that last start out of his mind. John, who do you think is going to benefit the most from a 5-man rotation this season for the Halos?
I think if I had to take a guess, it would have to be Reed Detmers. And I base that solely on the fact that Shohei Ohtani was not able to pitch the last month of the season, and the guys went to a 5-man rotation.
Yeah.
And Reed Detmers, what do you have, a 1.37 ERA through the month of September and his last 4 starts? I think that really benefited him, Mike. And I think that if they go back to that 5-man rotation, the consistency and the fact that pitchers are creatures of habit, that's even what Gooby said on the broadcast. These guys are a different breed and they're creatures of habit. I think Reed Detmers will benefit the most. At the same time, I can see it benefiting all these guys, but especially Detmers and perhaps Sandoval second. I think because he's the other guy who's been in a 6-man rotation the last couple of years. I think that's important for him. Griffin Canning just coming back last year. Maybe it wasn't as big of a thing for him. And then, of course, Chase Silseth, who is still planning on being part of this rotation. It was also his first time going through the 1 through 6 rotation there for a while. And then it was 1 through 5. So all of that to say, I think Reed Detmers is probably going to benefit the most.
John, there's always, whenever there's something good at spring training, there's always this caveat. Well, it is spring, right? And that's especially true for Angel fans because we don't want to get our hopes up too much. But one of the things we have to really pay attention to are some of the stats that are coming out from spring training, specifically for the starters, John. Something that I found fascinating is the last 3 spring trainings, the Angels have been in the mid-20s, ranked in the mid-20s for walk percentage, walk rate. John, going into yesterday's game, they had the second lowest walk rate this spring at 7.6%. That's incredible. And Wash said it's because they're buying into the fact that they're going to pound the strike zone with their first pitch. They're not going to waste their best pitch to start, and they're being very efficient with pitches. So if you're looking for things for spring training to maybe get excited about, that's one of the things that you can get excited about because that is such a dramatic difference from what happened in the last few spring trainings. And you could already see the influence of Barry Enright, and you can see the influence of Ron Washington, right?
We had a great tweet from Casey Payne, who's Locked On Every Dayer. He said, I have to keep reminding myself that it's only spring training, but it's like watching an entirely different team out there on the field. They have direction and coaching and totally different mentality. And I'm going to OD on the hopium, I swear. And I said,
nice.
The thing is that while we can temper expectations because it is spring training, we have to read between the lines of what's going on the field. Between the lines. There you go. You got to read between the lines in the sense that, yes, this walk percentage, the second lowest walk percentage in spring, that's huge because it means that guys aren't wasting pitches. It means that guys are not putting guys on base for them to come around and score. Mike, we know that that's been the number one problem for the pitching staff the last couple of years. Even Jose Suarez looked great, and he wasn't wasting pitches either, and that's a huge change for him. And then the other thing is you have to consider the matchups too. Like when you consider the fact that Jose Suarez got away with a strikeout on Marcus Semien, even when he, fell behind and then it became a 3-2 at bat, struck him out on the changeup. And that was a huge thing for him. So really great to see Tyler Anderson out there. Jose Suarez pitched after Tyler Anderson. It was his first appearance of the spring. Got a 1-2-3 inning and threw 5 pitches, Mike.
That was great.
Somebody said, is this the same guy?
I said, this guy?
We're
Right.
living in the twilight zone. The second inning, he got the first out. He got the second batter. But then LeBlanc made a bad play over there at first. I think the wind was really blowing, and
he lost track of it and kind of dropped in. Yeah,
LeBlanc was not having a good day out there.
No.
Not at the plate,
No.
not on the bases,
Didn't look
not
comfortable.
at first. No. Suarez didn't let it bother him though. He got a strikeout to the next batter, gave up a single, and then with Marcus Semien up to the plate, struck him out on a 3-2 changeup. Still only 26 years old. Mike, he had a comment here about wanting to be a starter. Why don't you read that for us?
Yeah, he said that's always important to me. I came up as a starter, not a reliever. If the bullpen is an option for me, I'm okay with it because I still have to do my work. I'll do whatever I need to do no matter what position I'm in. Suarez also said that he lost some weight this offseason, but he said he doesn't know how much. He's not keeping track. He just wants to be healthy, which I love.
Yeah.
Johnny, where does he fit in? Is he going to be the Jaime Barria on this starting staff, or do you think he'll surprise us like Griffin Canning did last year and maybe sneak his way into the rotation?
I don't think there's a spot for him in the rotation right now. I think that he's best served as that long relief guy because, again, a great 2 innings, Mike. I don't want to take that away from him. Facing challenging hitters, but at the same time, his problem, and we all know this, is getting through that order a second time.
Yep.
And so you and I have contended that he makes a much better long reliever because
Agreed.
if you can get 2 or 3 innings out of him and get him through the 1 through 9 at least once, that puts him in a very positive position.
Yeah.
Mike, couple of offensive notes here. Logan O'Hoppe started this game with an RBI double. He scored Miguel Sano after he took a walk to first. So Sano came all the way around on that double. Zach Neto hit a 2-run home run in the 5th inning. That was awesome. But prior to that home run, Moniak had a single, and there was a pickoff attempt at first, and it got past the first baseman, Lowe, over there. Moniak ran all the way up to third, and he picked up EY Sr. on that one. And so props to him for picking up EY and EY telling him, go, 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 go. So that was great to see. Aire Adrianza had a great play out there as well. Nearly hit a home run after Zach Neto. That was awesome.
Johnny, I think I'm jumping on the John train. I think he might be the guy that takes that last spot.
I think so too.
On the bench. I don't think it's going to be Stefanik. I think it might be Adrianza because he just seems to be somebody that Ron Washington is comfortable with, and he can play multiple positions, especially short, and they need a backup shortstop, right?
They absolutely do need a backup shortstop. But depending on when Rengifo is back, we might see both of those guys on the bench, or they might have like a Sano to take Rengifo's spot until Rengifo's better. He's supposed to be better by opening day. We haven't seen him yet in spring training, so that might still be up in the air. And then I got to give a shout out to our boy, Matt Moore, bottom of the 6th, 1-2-3 inning. K to Leody Taveras. He fell behind. Nathaniel Lowe struck him out as well, and then a ground out to Levon Soto up the middle for a nice play. Mike, boys were looking good out there. And again, it's the small things you have to pay attention to. You got to be able to read between the lines and pick up on those small victories through spring training. Now, it is nice to win a game, of course.
Right.
But at the end of the day, the most important thing is how these guys are handling their business from game to game. Hey, we want to thank you for making Locked On Angels your first listen every single day. The Angels are playing the Dodgers today at 5:05 Pacific time. Why is it in the evening? Well, I'll tell you why. Shohei Ohtani is going to be in this game, and it's the first time the Angels will face Ohtani as an opponent in his career. So here we go. It should
be fun.
Prime time, baby. You can catch every pitch of the Angels hometown broadcast on SiriusXM with the SXM app. Just search Angels. Coming up on Locked On Angels, have you noticed that our Halos are stealing more bags this spring? Well, we'll tell you the reason behind the strategy and how stolen bases are just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to the overall base running strategy for the Halos. We'll get into all of that coming right up.
We've got new friends and new sponsors on Locked On Angels. We have some new friends called Prize Picks that are here with us. So what's Prize Picks, you might ask? That's a great question. Prize Picks is the largest daily fantasy sports platform in North America. I have a friend who is a baseball fantasy junkie, and his wife said that they don't talk for like 6 months because he's going to start doing baseball fantasy again. But he should jump on with Prize Picks because it's really the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. And it's just you against the numbers instead of battling thousands of other players, including pros, and some of them are sharks. Some of them are really good. you pick more than or less than on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in, whether it's tournament season or the fight for the playoffs in the NBA for home court. There's no shortage of high stakes basketball moments this year. You can get in on all the excitement with Prize Picks. They are America's #1 fantasy sports app, and you can turn your hoops knowledge into serious cash. And now you can win up to 100 times your money with as little as 4 correct picks. Prize Picks is really simple to play. I can make my picks and submit my entry in less than 60 seconds. The gameplay is easy, and there's an enormous selection of players and stat types. So if you're jumping in, here's how it works. This week on Prize Picks, you could select Steph Curry for more than 29 points or Nikola Jokic for less than 15 rebounds. He plays for the Nuggets. Curry plays for the Warriors. Or maybe if you want to go with ladies basketball, and you could say Caitlin Clark, who is my daughter's favorite, that she's going to score more than 30 points, or LeBron James is going to get less than 10 assists. He's 39 years old. He's averaging 25 points a game, 7 rebounds, 6 assists. That guy's amazing. So when you win, there's quick withdrawals, like you can use Apple Pay access for quick and easy deposits into your account. So download this app today and use our promo code LOCKEDONMLB for the first deposit match of up to $100. Again, download Prize Picks today and use our code LOCKEDONMLB for the first deposit match of up to $100.
This is the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every single day. Everydayers, don't forget to head on over to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube, the world's first 24/7 national sports streaming channel. You get local coverage, you get expert coverage, you get national coverage of all the top stories across the sports world 24/7. So don't miss out. Head on over to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube and subscribe to the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel.
Locked On friend Jeff Fletcher has a great article in the OC Register about Mike Trout. And in it, Trout discusses his age and performance on the field. Now, last season, we all know that Trout posted some numbers that weren't the best. In fact, they were some of the worst of his career, Johnny. He finished with a .263 batting average and an .858 OPS. I love that those were the worst of his career. Just goes to show how great he's been.
Right.
Well below his previous career averages, which are .303 batting average and a 1.002 OPS. Trout did hit 18 home runs in 82 games before his injury. And in talking with Trout, he said, I've been fighting through it the last couple of years, just trying to get the rhythm down. Going in a stretch where I feel really, really comfortable. Looking back, there wasn't a stretch in the last year or the years before where I felt like myself. I just want to get back to that. That's really key. Now, early last year, Johnny, from April to mid-June, Trout had a .669 OPS over a 41-game span. It was the worst 41-game span of his career. Then in mid-June, we finally saw the Mike Trout that we all have come to know and love, and he was performing to his level. He had a 1.047 OPS over his last 16 games, 68 plate appearances before he fractured that hamate bone on July 3rd. So he was heating up, Johnny.
I know.
And then the injury came and shut him down.
Now, the biggest question, Mike, is that, is this Trout's down year in 2023? Is that an isolated slump, or is that a sign of decline that normally comes as players get older? Well, the article from Jeff Fletcher said Trout scoffed at the idea. There you go. I was going to say, give me your best scoff.
Yeah.
He said, no. It's not that. I know what I'm doing wrong. I created a bad habit in the last year or two that I'm trying to get out of. That bad habit, Mike, is sliding as opposed to keeping a firm base when he's at the plate. This caused his hips to drop, and Trout said he was under everything. Gosh, that makes so much sense.
Right.
When you watch him swing and miss on like the fastball, and you see how under it he is.
Every time they show a slow-mo replay, you see him swinging under it. And that's why that high fastball was just so dangerous for him last year, because he wasn't adjusting to it, because partially because of this sliding habit that he got into.
Yeah, the numbers demonstrate this as well. Trout's contact rate was 76% in 2023. He'd been at least 80% in every season through 2020. And then he was about 73 from 21 to 22. Those, of course, were 2 injury-shortened seasons, but it's effectively kind of messed up his ability to hit the high fastball.
Yeah.
And especially not even like high velocity pitches, but just kind of 94 and above sometimes get to him. It's kind of strange, but in 2023, Trout hit 197 on pitches 95 or higher. The major league average was 240. So Trout was under that league average. He'd never hit worse than 236 on those pitches. And as recently as 2022, he hit 290 on 95 miles an hour or higher. So we know it's easy to believe that perhaps his bat speed has slowed down because of age, but the truth is the numbers don't support that, right, Mike?
Right. StatCast began tracking bat speed in 2023, and Trout's average was 73.8 miles an hour. And this was the second fastest in the majors behind Giancarlo Stanton, who was at 77 miles an hour. He's swinging a hot bat. And Trout's problem wasn't that his bat was slow. It was that he was just missing on a lot of pitches, which again goes back to his mechanical issue. And so Trout has been working to get back to his old baseball self, but he also had some bad luck too, Johnny, in some of the seasons, especially last year. His expected batting average based on quality of contact last year was 275. The expected slugging percentage was 523 compared to his actual slugging percentage of 490. So he's had some bad luck that just comes along with the game. But also if you got this mechanical issue and you're swinging under pitches, it's going to affect a lot of things that you need to do. So, Johnny, what did Trout say that he's going to do to help fix this mechanical issue?
Yeah, he said it starts with getting more plate appearances in the spring. He wants 70 to 80 plate appearances while they're in spring training. It would also include at-bats in live BP or minor league games. Last year, he had just 26 plate appearances in spring training, plus some on the backfields, and that's due to the World Baseball Classic. Mike, right. I think they said on the broadcast, and maybe it was Wayne Randazzo, this is the first normal spring training since 2019, or since 2018, actually, because 2019 had the WBC, 2020, obviously the pandemic, 21 was also the pandemic, 22 was the lockout issue, and 23 was last year's WBC. So this is the first spring training where the guys are finally getting into their regular rhythm. So Trout continued. He said, you can only do so much in the cage. You have to get those everyday reps in the game. If I can get to 100 by mid-April, that's when you really get into a rhythm. You have to build into that, but getting those at-bats in spring training will definitely help. And then Trout was asked if he can be the player once again who won those 3 MVP awards. He said, for sure. Every year I come in like that, I want to be back to that. When you're grinding through things at the plate, it's tough mentally and physically. Mentally, you're trying to get to that point. When you don't, and you're fighting through things, it puts a toll on you. And physically, you're in there hitting every day, and things are going to flare up on you. Getting back to my normal self is the goal. Mike, will Trout be Trout once again in 2024? What do you say?
I think so. I think that there is no indication that he won't be, and he's aware of some of the things that he's been struggling with. But the big thing is always going to be health. And if Mike Trout is a healthy Mike Trout, then why not? You haven't seen any, the numbers don't indicate that there's any sort of decline. They indicate that he is aware of the mechanical issue. And if he fixes that, addresses that, to which you've done a great job in last year's show where you talked about how he's made adjustments. Trout is always making adjustments. And so I could see him maybe not doing the 300 batting average and the, high home runs that he had in the years past, but I could certainly
bite your tongue.
I could certainly see a 270, 280 Mike Trout and a 35 to 40 home run guy, right? A couple of 100 RBIs. I think that he'd be really great this year to see him return to who he is. I'm looking forward to watching what he can do on the field, and I'm really hopeful that he can stay on the field for 140, 150 games.
That's the key. It's got to be health, and he'll certainly be in the MVP race, especially if he can stay on the field. And then the other element to this, Mike, is the bat speed. We talked about that. Jeff Fletcher reported on that. The bat speed hasn't gone down. His defense last year was the best defense he had in a couple of years, like almost a decade. And it's because of the sprint speed. It's because of how fast he's running routes and then the base running. I mean, Ron Washington said that the guys were literally following Trout's base running path because of how well he runs the bases and cuts the corners. And the guys were following in those footsteps around the bases. So there's just a lot of indications that it's not so much he's getting older. He's going to be 32, 33, that sort of thing. It's all about the mechanical issue. So we're hopeful that that's going to be something he can change coming into this season.
Today's episode of Locked On Angels is brought to you by some longtime friends, FanDuel. You can get a big dub with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. And right now, new customers like you can get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 if your team wins. You can bet on all your favorite NBA players and NBA teams. You can bet on who's going to score the most, who's going to score the least. You can bet on assists. You can bet on what the total score might be. You can even bet on who's going to win, even if it's not your favorite team, but you're going to bet on them anyway. I would say take the Celtics because they just look fantastic right now and they're wiping everybody out. So you probably bet on the Nuggets because they're pretty good too. So why don't you check out FanDuel right now, FanDuel.com/lockedon. And if you go to that website, they'll know that you came from Locked On Angels. Again, FanDuel.com/lockedon and get a big dub this season. FanDuel is the official sportsbook partner of the NBA.
Mike, coming into the game yesterday, the Angels have stolen 16 bases in spring training. We love this part of the game, and we're convinced that it's something that the Halos must get back to. Somebody was upset because we used the phrase boring fundamental baseball, and he said the O2 team certainly played fundamental baseball, and that wasn't boring. And yes, facetiously, we're calling it boring fundamental baseball because, as we've heard many, many times, the home run is sexy. The home run is exciting and all of that stuff. And the Angels have put way too much emphasis on the stuff that gets the, the casual fans excited when you go to a ball game. Like the fundamental stuff, we call it boring because, we're joking. But also at the same time, it's stuff that you really have to hone in on and watch for when it comes to watching a baseball game. But Mike, the Angels, they got to get back to stealing bases, and especially with the bigger bases, the pitch clock. It was something that they didn't do last year, despite having bigger bases. In fact, it was almost discouraged because they liked the odds of the player coming around to score more than the odds of stealing a base. Wash said that the stolen bases are all part of his strategy to be aggressive on the bases. Sorry, I'm looking at your notes here, and it says
straggly.
His straggly.
Darn that autocorrect.
Spell check. Wash said, I don't think these teams in the American League will let us run crazy, but if they go to sleep, we're going to run, and they have to mind their P's and Q's because I know, right? I want to be aggressive. That's the way we're going to play. But Mike, it's not just about stolen bases, right?
Right. It's also about what they're going to be doing on the bases. Wash said that they're also emphasizing taking the extra base on base hits. And you already talked about the extra base with Mickey Moniak in yesterday's game when he went from first to third was a throwing error, right? Went from first to third. And that's what helped set up the Angels' first run. And so that's something that Wash has really been emphasizing, the runner at third and less than 2 outs. They want to be able to get that guy in. Wash said he will regularly send the runner on contact as long as the Angels are ahead or tied. That's something we should pay attention to this spring and this season. Wash also said that we're just trying to get into that mindset. If you get thrown out, you get up, you brush yourself off, and then you go back out there and do it again. We're not going to stop pushing the envelope unless the team stops us.
If at first you don't succeed, dust yourself off and try again. Right? Thank you, Destiny's Child.
That was great. So Johnny, this seems like an obvious strategy.
Sure.
When it talks about taking the extra base, and last year what you just said made me cringe. When you talked about the analytics said that maybe they liked the odds of this instead of that. Like, that just seems so stupid, and I know I'm not a baseball guy like these guys are baseball guys. It just seems so stupid. And I think that's what's great about Wash is like, all the analytics are fantastic, but here's what we're going to do. We're going to play fun, fundamental baseball, right? That's what we're going to do. And I don't understand why teams move away from this strategy. Do you?
It's odd to me that the Angels will emphasize swing and miss from their pitchers because they're worried about the lack of shift, which was a new rule last year. But then the bigger bases, which was also new last year, they didn't adjust their game plan to the bigger bases. So it's like, why did you take one new rule and say, oh, we're going to focus on this, and then not do anything about the bigger bags out there, Mike? Like, good grief.
Right.
So I don't know why this sort of thing goes away. I think there's too many cooks in the kitchen. Sometime, as we saw, it was Alex Taman and Perry Manassi, and then it was Phil Nevin, and then bench coach, and so just too many cooks in the kitchen and passing data along. And look, I know that you and I have given Joe Madden a bad time about some of his decisions on the field, but at the same time, it sounds like he was in a very frustrating situation with a lot of cooks in the kitchen and the information being passed along, and him and Perry collided on what information he was going to pass to his hitters and whatnot and his players. So I think that just too many people are trying to make decisions here. And that's why I think it's really important that Ron Washington was hired, because you can trust Wash. And especially because it's Perry's guy. Perry's not there telling somebody else's guy what to do. Perry picked the guy that he trusts to make these kinds of decisions, in my opinion.
Yeah, I love that. And I love that we have a manager that knows what he's doing and has a strategy for what he's doing. Like, they've just not really had synergy on this team. And so it's great to see the synergy that's happening with the Angels right now.
Absolutely. The other thing I'll say, Mike, I know we're excited about the stolen bases and the base running. I want to see more of it from the guys who are going to be on this major league team. I want to see. I know that like guys like Tyron Paris, they're stealing bags, and maybe Levon Soto or Jordan Adams or what have you. I got to see more from Joe Adell and Mickey Moniak and Zach Neto, because those are the guys who are going to be on the Angels come opening day. And so if we're going to get excited about stolen bags, it's got to be the guys who are guaranteed to be there. Like Jake Marisnick, he's doing a great job. I don't think he's going to be on the major league club to start the season. Of course, he'll be in AAA. But again, I think it's important for the guys who are probably going to be there opening day to start really making a habit of good base running and stolen bases.
Hey, thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. The Angels play the Dodgers today at 5:05 Pacific time, and you can catch every pitch of the Angels' hometown broadcast with SiriusXM on the SXM app. Just search Angels.
Hey, give us a follow on Twitter at Locked On Angels and at Super Halo Bros on Twitter and Instagram. Whether you're watching or listening, come on over to today's show on YouTube. Get in the comments section, hit that thumbs up button on your way down there, and get in the conversation from today's show. Mike, what do we have on deck for tomorrow's show?
We've been super impressed with some of the young Halo prospects like Nelson Rada, Caden Dana, and others that have come up and really been dominant. Now, scouts don't seem to be really impressed with them, and they continue to rank the Halo system really, really low. So does that matter to the Angels coaching staff and to those that are in charge of these young prospects? And how do they respond to the low rankings? We've got their answers and what they focus on. And here's a hint. They don't care about the rankings. And so we're going to talk all about that tomorrow on Locked On Angels.
Looking forward to that conversation. We hope you'll come back and join us. Until then, my name is John, and that's my brother Mike.
And my name is Mike, and that's my brother John.
Thanks for being here, everybody, and we'll see you back here on Wednesday.
If at first you don't succeed.
You
Pick
can
yourself
do
up
enough and try again.
You can let off